All right, Gabe, we're going to get to the bottom of this. We're getting to the bottom of this.
I want to, finally,
I want to hear the resolution to the debate of what's better for your COE operating model. Should it be federated? Should it be centralized? Should it be a hybrid? Should it be something in between? We're joined by Matt, who's going to...
It's a lot of options.
Yeah, who's going to unlock this for us.
One choice.
One choice.
If you had
The
one
world
choice.
is waiting.
I'm gonna answer it from the perspective of my current role as a COE manager.
Yeah.
I very much like the federated model that I currently use.
Okay.
But I had the luxury of inheriting a very strong COE when I took the role that was there from the start. There was one federated crew and the COE simultaneously. So
we had a head start on
standards.
one group.
Right, we had the standards in place and built everything, proof of concept, proved automation anywhere's capability at the very beginning, and then took that story and started adding additional teams on following what we were setting up. If I want to change that answer and go as what the developer would be, I wish I could just build stuff myself instead of dealing with all the hurdles, but I think you lose a lot of focus on what you should be building and where you should be building it. One of the things I'm proud of with our federated model is that even the smallest line of business with one developer is able to build stuff rather than what I've heard in stories where there's a centralized COE. They're building the big fish. The biggest area of their organization gets attention, and the rest of the organization gets nothing.
Tell me a little bit more about the standardization, because I think that's a key to the success here.
Yeah.
You mentioned that, and you said that there was already standards in place for onboarding what was your one factory or your one federated group, and I think that's the real important to having success in a federated model. You need to have standards for the way that your automations are developed, the way that they're named, the way that you're doing testing, the way that you're doing documentation. Talk to me about that process of going from one to now many federated teams, and what was that federated onboarding process like? How has it changed? What did you learn along the way?
So we'll get to that last question. We were by no means perfect at the beginning, but we had it so that when that first crew was in, anything that they wanted to build was vetted by the COE. We had a strategy arm in the COE that looked at what people wanted to build, helped them figure out the ROI, helped them figure out like the basic things. Again, we do it a lot differently now, but at the beginning, when we thought that counting number of bots and potential ROI and number of executions, the simple things that everyone starts with, we at least had a model that they had to follow. And we had them set up dedicated funding for a crew, so we knew that they were going to be there for the long haul. We weren't going to run into orphan bots. We knew that they had dedicated product owners that would sit from the business in the federated tech crew. And we had a strategist person aligned directly to those teams as well, so we had the trifecta. We had it so that no decision was really made to go forward with automation without everyone weighing in on whether it was going to be worth it.
That's cool.
And then once they started building, we treated it as a full tech build. So we had enterprise change management involved, enterprise risk groups. They understood from the very beginning, here's what a bot does, here's where its failure points can be. At the time, we were building incredibly low-risk things. If they didn't run, okay, the humans will do it. Like that was our fail.
That's the backstop.
Right? We didn't really have to worry. But as we matured and we started putting things customer-facing or something that's running every 5 minutes to make sure that the bank is processing wires on time, as things got more complex, we had to up those controls.
More complex and more important.
More important, exactly.
Critical.
More important. We had to start introducing new controls, but we had a place to put them because we had the initial framework in place. As new crews were getting brought in, all they had to do was, sign on the dotted line. This is the model we're going to follow. Yeah. And then they knew what to do. There wasn't much rebuilding every single time a new crew came because they knew you need a product owner, you need dedicated funding, you're a trusted crew, and you're the only people that are allowed to do automation for your line of business going forward.
Got it. I like the structured approach.
Yeah. What I'm interested in, though, is like anything, I'm sure, it sounds great, but I want to know, where did you skin your nose? Like, you got to this point, and even then when it was simple, like what were some of the I wouldn't even call it a pitfall, just the little things that you would now be like, don't do that,
The Matt of today
don't
can
fool
answer
yourself.
that.
We wore that path down of how to build a bot, how to build a team so well that now that we are trying to move out of the scheduled bot world into something different, every single group from risk to change at PNC, to everything that we had to get stakeholder buy-in on before, we kind of have to redo that, because when we say, oh, well, this bot will interact with the employee directly, and they'll be like, well, that's not what we've talked about. Everyone has to be re-educated. And so we wore that path down a little bit too hard in the beginning. And if we had maybe done it with the foresight, knowing that there might be changes with the way we wanted to do things in the future, could have incorporated a model in where we were ready for those changes.
Interesting.
Right now, it's almost like we're rebuilding all of the controls and everything from scratch.
I mean, to be fair, it's hard to know everything, right? It sounds like you guys had, a great start, and it's working well. You bring up an interesting point, right? Because we do talk about, and I use Automation Copilot myself internally. I work at an automation company, so it's, I'm out here talking about it and living it every day. But for an employee that maybe doesn't even know on the back end what you guys are doing, they just see the results. And all of a sudden you're like, hey, here's an interface that you can just go send a command or a pre-built automation to run for you.
Yeah.
I'm like excited about it probably, but I'm like still on the back end, how do you build that into your flow with the function and with your different stakeholders, et cetera, right?
Yeah, it's a completely separate set of stakeholders, which is the hard part. With scheduled bots, it's almost entirely back office. With things that are going to be front office oriented, or with employees that aren't generally ops oriented, you've got entirely separate stakeholders that you need to get buy-in from that we never tried to before. And we're that bot team over in that other part of the bank. Why do they need to worry about us? So it's a lot of re-education, a lot of communication that...
Yeah, this is all about your evangelism efforts, right?
Yeah.
How you're doing promotion and engagement, how you're talking about your program.
Yeah.
So that's huge.